when they were kids and we'd go put the babies to bed and he would go to get like a juice cup or something, I would be standing by the side of the bed for 30 minutes because he'd go to get the juice cup and I'd stand there and wait and wait and wait. And I'd go in there and I'd see a trail and I'd find him out in his truck. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I went to get the cup and saw that the trash needed to go out. And when I took the trash out, I remembered something I was getting in the truck. And when I got in the truck, I remembered I needed to rearrange my file box.
Yeah,
and I'd be like,
she's not stretching it either. That's exactly.
And it was the truth. And I mean, I'm like, for the love, the baby's been waiting for the juice cup for the last 25 freaking minutes. Are you kidding me right now? So, I mean, so when I say he has extreme ADHD personality, I'm not kidding.
Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories TV and podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the place to be to hear love stories. Without wasting any time, here's today's love story. Enjoy. Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories. I'm so excited to have both of you on the show. So why don't we start by you guys introducing yourselves to the audience.
Hello, I'm David Chalk.
I'm Rachel Chalk.
All the way from Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Ooh, the big state of.
Big Guthrie, America.
Nice. Are you Sooner fans or Cowboy fans?
Sooner.
Okay.
Yeah, Dave's got a tattoo on his leg.
I don't mind OSU, but I root for Oklahoma.
Okay. Well, you go Boomer and then you respond
Sooner, yeah. Pretty much wherever you go, unless you're up in Orange and Black Land.
Right. Well, I'm so excited.
Real close to Stillwater, though. Real close.
Okay. Well, thanks for being here. So, we're talking about your love journey. So why don't we start by you guys telling the audience, how did your love journey begin?
Well, I guess it technically started at McDonald's. That's what I tell people.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know it started there, but it did. It did.
How did it start at McDonald's?
Well, I was there with my daughter and a friend. We had been shopping at Mathis Brothers for some furniture for her, and we had stopped there to get my daughter a little hamburger. And there was this guy behind me with his little girl, well, I assumed was his little girl at the time, who was quite the little hellion running around. And
yes, she was.
And he had a friend with him. And I kept turning around, and every time I turned around to do anything or when we sat down, he kept smiling and kind of nodding his head towards me. And we were like, oh, my goodness, got a big kick out of that the whole time we were there. And so that's the first time that I had ever seen him was at that McDonald's that day. And needless to say, I didn't know that we had been going to the same church.
Okay.
But the church we went to was pretty big church, and he had been visiting with a friend, but going to a married couples class with them. And I was real involved in the singles class, but he had not been going to that. But we had been going to the same church and didn't even know it.
Oh, okay. So, Dave, did you know her at McDonald's when you saw her, or?
No, and we've always had conflicting stories to this meeting at McDonald's, but we'll go with her story. I won't debunk it too much, except with what I was doing. With what I was doing, or what she claimed I was doing, which I probably was. It's called just being nice here in Oklahoma. Other places, it's probably considered flirting, but that's okay. Either way, it worked out. But yeah, it was really funny because the friends that I was with, I mean, it had taken him several times to, get me to come to church. And I was raised Pentecostal, but this was a Baptist church in Bethany, Oklahoma. And so there was this, it was considered friend day. And I just decided, well, you know what, he's been on me, and I work for the guy, so we see each other every day. And so I'm like, you know what, I'll check it out. And ended up going to, and I was newly divorced, or on the verge of being divorced, and started going to a newly married couples class, which was kind of ironic. I'm like, why are you even going in this class, you ding dong?
Right.
And so I went, I guess there was a couple weeks, maybe, and decided to go to what was considered a 20-something class. And that's, Rachel was a greeter. So she got to see me right off the bat when I walked in the door. It wasn't like she was on one side of the room, I was on the other, and we caught each other's eyes. She was right there at the front door to greet me when I went in.
Okay.
So
that's how it all got started.
Yep. I like to think that, and I totally believe that, God had a plan, and he, go ahead. he had a plan, and he placed us where we needed to be.
Yeah, that's true. He gets sappy real quick. The older he gets, the sappier he gets real quick. That's what having 5 girls does to you. It gets you real emotional real quick.
Yeah, we have one. Our first child together is turning 18 Wednesday.
Oh wow!
So she had several of her friends over last night to stay the night. We had kind of a semi birthday party for her. It was more like just a dinner.
Oh, okay.
With all of her friends. So she's on the verge of turning 18.
That's exciting.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
So to continue on with your story, you went to the not the singles, but which one were you greeting, Rachel?
Yeah, the singles, it was a 20-something singles class, yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I was real active in that. I greeted, I did one of the small groups, and was real active in that with my daughter. I had a daughter named Lily, and I would, we would help write. We got together once a week and would write postcards to inform people of what was coming up the next week, or if people missed, tell them that, we missed them and look forward to seeing them the next week, and tell them what was coming up. And usually, like how the Sunday school class went, we, did like a little, praise and worship, and then did like a general Bible study, and then split up into small groups to discuss things. And that's kind of how you connected to get to know people, because the group was pretty big. It could be upward sometimes on Sunday mornings of up to 150 people. Splitting into those smaller groups kind of helped you get connected or to know people. So,
yeah.
Of course, the day that he walked in, my best friend from high school went to church with me, and of course I'd already told her about the incident at McDonald's. And of course, when he walked in the door, I was like, I just looked at her and started laughing, like I could not believe. I was like, that is the guy from McDonald's. I just freak plumbed out, honestly, because I was like, what? I just couldn't believe it. The irony of the guy from a few weeks ago in McDonald's, who at that time I thought was a complete dork.
Well, and of course I had a mullet.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was the story from when we spoke at the thing. That was the big story, because I was a hairdresser, and it was 1999, and Dave was still sporting a mullet. So that was a mullet. And but he had gotten a haircut, and so I was like, that's mullet guy, but he just got a haircut. And I called it his Dorothy Hamill, because he had the long bangs with the short in the back. And I was like, there's the mullet guy. And she was like, no way. And so, of course, when we split into small groups, he decided to come in mine. So I was somewhat aggravated by that, but I had to act like I wasn't, because that would have been rude.
It was God, I'm telling you.
Yes.
It was orchestrated by God, for sure.
It was ordained.
Let's transition on to talking about, how did you guys end up, like, Dave, did you ask her out? At what point did you ask her out?
Well, that's a really funny story. So I had started just going up to her shop and then eventually getting a haircut and, some different things. And so up around the shop, the three ladies that worked there with her, I guess her and her friend that she was referring to earlier were into rodeos. So I had, they were talking about not being able to have time to go out and get tickets for the rodeo that was in town. And I was like, well, I'm out all the time. I mean, I was a roofing contractor. And so I was out driving all over. So I was like, well, I'll kindly pick him up for you. So she had given me a date. And to this day, when she tells the story, she'll say that I'd done it on purpose, which I really didn't. But it was the only day that they had available. At least that's what the ticket person told me, is that that's the only day that they had available. So when I took them back, her friend could not go that day. So it just conveniently worked out that she and I went to the rodeo. I wasn't a big rodeo person. I mean, I knew about them and had went around them several times from my hometown, but I really wasn't a rodeo person.
Okay.
So, going to that, and then it just kind of escalated from there to, it was just like I don't know, like I said, I really believe that it was meant to be.
Right.
And otherwise, I think it could have went many ways different.
Mm-hmm.
I was mad.
You were
mad.
Yeah, she was a little aggravated.
I felt a little swindled. Well, yeah. I felt quite swindled. I thought he was, because he had tried to ask me out several times, and I just wasn't sure I wanted to do that. I was in a place that I was happy where I was in my job and my work with my daughter. I just wasn't sure I wanted a relationship with anybody right then, and I felt a little swindled. So I thought I was going to fix his wagon by telling him I was going to be ready to go when I wasn't going to be home. So he'd have to sit with my parents, because I lived with my parents at the time with my daughter. And so I sent him there to have to sit there for well over an hour before I even got home with my parents. So he'd probably feel uncomfortable. And
listen to this. You're getting ready to hear how she swindled herself.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I sent him there, and I get home, and he's sitting with his feet up, my dad's recliner with his shoes off, and they're just watching Gaither videos, talking it up, and I was just so aggravated. He was that comfortable in my space with my parents, and it just aggravated me to no end. So I tried not to act like I had fun the whole night, but I did. I did. He hook, line, and sinkered me. He was a salesman, that's for sure. He sold himself all night long.
Well, again, I'll give God the glory and the credit. It had nothing to do with me necessarily. I had come out of a pretty bad relationship and was in the process of divorce, and had my daughter that was about 4 months older than, and I didn't know this at the time, but her and Rachel's daughter they're only 4 days or 4 months apart.
Oh, okay.
So that worked out really good. But, so I was a single dad.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he had full custody of his daughter.
I had two sons, but I was a single dad, daughter, and I really didn't. I mean, I gave it my best shot.
Oh, poor thing. When he started coming to me to get their hair done, he had been trying to cut her bangs herself. And she had 4 different level of cuts on the side of her hair. Bless her heart, she looked like a little homeless child.
Hey, I did learn how to run the triple ponytail on the back though, which is pretty cool. But she and that was another thing that I was really blessed with, because back when I divorced my second time, dads didn't get custody of their kids, especially a daughter. And I not only got full custody of my daughter Brittany, I mean, it was with a female judge. And so it was, it just, everything was, kind of falling into place a little bit. And working out a little bit better than I or probably anyone would have expected.
Right.
But so, and it happened relatively quick. It wasn't like, I was done and then it went a year or so. I mean, it was relatively quick after my divorce that she and I got together. And, it was different because I hadn't really, my two marriages, I hadn't been with anyone that really appreciated me. And, but anyway, so that was a very different situation.
Yeah.
And, she was very responsible. I was to a degree, but not much with everything, just with some things. She was pretty much that way with everything that she did. So that, I think that, that was another thing that, worked out really for me beneficially for sure, is she was a little bit more responsible than I was. I was just kind of fly by the seat of my pants person, and things will fall into place and, go from there. And then, through that, I mean, my mother was also sick. I mean, she was, we didn't know she was going to pass away, but she was sick. And so that was another thing, is that, my mom wanted me to be with someone that loved me.
Yeah.
And loved my family. So
I used to tell people that Dave was like one of those spin tops you used to play with as a kid. You twist them and they spin real fast, and the centrifugal force is what held him to the ground. That's what I tell people Dave's personality was. He was just this force that spun round and round and round and round, and he needed something that held him to the ground, and that's what God put together for.
I was just used to going and going and going, because when we got together, I was playing in a men's senior baseball league, and it was, nonstop. I played baseball all the time, and then working, worked and played baseball. And then when, all that happened with my second wife, I had a new outlook on life. Even though I tried really hard to do the same things, it just didn't always work out right.
Yeah.
And so really just settling down, not semi.
You had all these great attributes and ability. You just needed someone to ground you. You didn't have anybody to ground you before, to hold you in that spot and focus it.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of being held in check. I was just kind of, go. And, it was really hard. And even to this day, it's really hard for me to just sit down and just take it easy. I mean, I'm not old. I'm getting older, but I'm not old. And I don't, sitting around is just not something that I do. And, I've pretty much worked since I was 12 years old in something. And so working is just kind of a secondhand thing. I don't think anything about it. I get up and go to work and enjoy it, come home and enjoy it, and just go still yet. But I have learned that sometimes you got to sit down and take a break and just chill and really appreciate what's around you.
Exactly.
Because that's, before, it wasn't like I was really appreciating what was around me. I was just satisfied that it was there, but I just wasn't really enjoying it.
Right. Yeah.
And so
you guys are a good match, that you meet each other halfway. Dave, like Rachel was saying, she anchors you in a way.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. But, I think I think I may have mentioned this in the other forum we were in, but this is a shared commitment. This is not something, and I know a lot of guys out there, some guys may really need to hear this. Some may be right there where they need to be, but this is a 50-50 deal. This is not a 70% me and 30% her, or this is not a majority rules thing. This is a 50-50 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel can tell you, I do not leave my clothes laying around. I don't, just leave dishes in the sink. I don't. Now, she cooks. I don't cook because the girls would probably hate me. But, and I mean, I can cook, but I just don't. That's kind of Rachel's deal, and she does it, and I don't get in the way of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, as far as the
he's a great dishwasher.
Abilities with the kids, with, the housework, just all the things in life that you do, it's a shared thing. It's not something that you put on your wife. It's not something that should be put on the husband. It's, it's a shared thing.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, I know several guys that are not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really hang out with them because it just irritates me to no end that people can take advantage of people. And that's what it is. It's not, and to me, it can't be a happy relationship when, one's doing everything.
One of the questions that I always ask my couples that I interview is that, actually, before I get to that, let's talk about how was your engagement? How did that happen?
Very short.
Very short?
Very short, yeah. Well, funny enough, within a month of that date, we had decided we were getting married. Probably about on Valentine's Day, which was only 3 weeks after that date, we discussed getting married.
Wait, which date are you talking about?
The date I didn't want to go on.
Oh, the rodeo.
The rodeo. Yeah, because that was in January, like the 17th of January.
Uh-huh.
And we discussed getting married on February 14th on Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Yeah, and we were married by October 14th.
Oh, nice. Well, when you know. When you know.
Yeah,
you know.
So it was very, very short
Well,
engagement.
and in the process of that, Rachel and I were pretty much footing our own bill for getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
then
I was 27.
Yeah.
And he was almost 33, so we weren't young.
Well, and not only that, at that time, my mom really got sick.
Yeah.
And we, as a family, booked it to Golden, Mississippi, doing about 100 miles an hour.
His mom almost died 2 weeks before we got married.
And my mother couldn't be here.
Yeah.
She couldn't make and we were actually there in Golden, Mississippi, and she was sick in the hospital. It was really bad. And I mean, we had a wedding to, basically get to.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even the planning part. It was getting to it. I mean, being there. It's because we had everything planned. It was, our wedding was at her dad's church in War Acres, Oklahoma City, basically. And, we didn't want to leave, but we couldn't. I mean, we had all of our plans made. And so it was a hard pull.
So we had a great wedding. I loved it.
Yeah, we had a great wedding, and
that's the fun thing about being a little bit older and paying for all of it yourself. It kind of is what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And we had fun. And it was fun. It was kind of fun having Brittany and Lily. They were both in the wedding, and we had a reception with food and dancing. So we have pictures of them dancing, and we had their little reception table with mini punch bowl and finger foods. And
oh, nice.
So those pictures are so cute to see when they are little bitty like that.
Yeah.
Except Brittany was so funny. She was a terrible picture taker. In fact, every picture we have when she's little where she's smiling, the rest of us look haggard and worn out, because by the time we got her to cooperate, the rest of us looked like you were beat. And so it's so funny to see those pictures, even in some of the wedding pictures where everybody else is kind of just making this face and Brittany's finally smiling. But it's so cute to see those of them rolling around on the dance floor in their little white frou-frou dresses and having punch stained faces and things like that. So
yeah. Oh, that's cute. That's
cute.
So the next question I wanted to ask is, two people getting together, there's some things that you deal with that are, I call them annoyances. What is one thing from each of you? What annoyance do you deal with in your relationship?
He doesn't listen. Oh my Lord, he doesn't listen.
That, I'd probably just have to go with that one myself, is that I don't listen. Because I don't really have any annoyances necessarily.
Yeah.
I honestly cannot think of anything that annoys me. I'm pretty easygoing. I don't like to fight. I don't like to argue.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when we first got together, it was really not necessarily a pet peeve, but it was just something that I really didn't like. I didn't like to argue in front of the kids. And my parents were divorced when I was 2 years old. I was really, really young. But I heard stories. I never witnessed anything, but I heard stories about how my dad was. And I didn't want to be like that. I just didn't want to argue in front of them. I didn't want to have any type of argument, period. I didn't want to fight, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, when we first got together, it was, I guess, in a way a pet peeve, but I just, it was more like a wish that I did not
that you didn't
argue in front of the kids, and not to hide anything from them.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was their business, for one, and I didn't want them to see mom and daddy fight.
Yeah.
So believe me, behind closed doors for a long time, we had our little tiffs, just like every marriage does.
Right.
But,
Right. You do get it. He gets annoyed with me because he says because of my tone when I get sharp, but I will get sharp if I've sat there and told him something 5 or 6 times. I get annoyed because I don't care for repeating myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually when I get sharp with the kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't like to have to repeat something over and over again, as most parents do not.
Yeah,
but he is a very ADHD personality. He has extreme ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like when they were kids and we'd go put the babies to bed and he would go to get like a juice cup or something, I would be standing by the side of the bed for 30 minutes because he'd go to get the juice cup and I'd stand there and wait and wait and wait. And I'd go in there and I'd see a trail. And I'd find him out in his truck. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I went to get the cup and saw that the trash needed to go out. And when I took the trash out, I remembered something I was getting in the truck. And when I got in the truck, I remembered I needed to rearrange my file box. And I'd be like...
She's not stretching it either. That's exactly...
And it was the truth. And I'm like, for the love... The baby's been waiting for the juice cup for the last 25 freaking minutes. Are you kidding me right now? So when I say he has extreme ADHD personality, I'm not kidding. So like sometimes I'll tell him something and if he can be looking right at me and he won't remember what I said because his brain's just all over the place sometimes. It's just distracted. So he will get annoyed with me because if I've already told him something 4 or 5 times, I will get sharp. It's just my reaction.
Well, again, not really annoyed necessarily with her, more annoyed with
and
myself.
Then he'll tell me I'm being condescending, and I'm like, well, for the love, I've just told you something 5 times. I mean, I'm a little irritated.
Right.
People don't hear things.
So that is probably after 18 years of being married. That's probably the one of the things that we probably still fuss over the most is that, but that's just, he's very ADHD and that's just probably going to be that way forever.
My deal is that I try to see, the best in people. I don't want, and with her, I do. In a way.
Well, me maybe. Not
well, that's what I'm talking about. I try to see, the best in her and what she's doing.
He does. I'll give him that.
So it's really, and, being raised with a mom that was sick pretty much my whole life, I mean, that's all I saw. I mean, my mom was supposed to have died at 30. She died at 57. You know, so it was, but she had high blood pressure. I mean, just all kinds of kidney problems, and I mean, pretty much my whole upbringing, and it just. And when I was on the road, I used to drive a big truck cross country, and I was actually in Pennsylvania on a trip, and found out Rachel had a mild stroke in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh my God.
And so, I was trying to get, back, and, I'd got dispatched over to St. Louis by that time. And I had my youngest daughter with me. We had went on a trip to Vermont, just kind of come all the way back down the East Coast, and was in Pennsylvania when I found out. Rachel and her sister, and then our two middle daughters were in gymnastics, and they had went up to New Jersey to see about training at a facility up there. And so they were on their way back. And so it was, it was one of those things to where, she had a very traumatic thing happen, and I was not around her. And it was the first time that I had been in that situation where I wasn't, I mean, I'd worked out of town a couple of times when we had a roofing business, but this was totally different. I couldn't just jump on a plane or, and of course in a big truck, you're not getting anywhere fast.
Right.
So, and so she was there, I was there, and, it was really hard, and, and then some of the things medically that she's had to deal with, here the past, couple of years has just been really tough. And, and not just on her, probably more on her, because she's not the same person she used to be.
Yeah.
She's the same person I married, but she's, as far as, I mean, our girls could attest to this, is that she's just not the same person that she used to be.
So on the flip side of that, what is the one thing that you absolutely love about each other?
Well, I will say one thing about Dave, I never, ever have to doubt is that he loves me and only me.
That's
only
awesome.
me. I have never doubted that 1 ounce from the time that we met and got together. It's only me. There is no one else.
That's beautiful.
There is no one else ever.
I would have to go the same route, because I don't, and what I'd kind of went back a little bit in the fact that I always felt that she was 100% committed, and it was because of my past relationships, and I kind of brought it in to our marriage, which is always a huge mistake. I mean, the past is the past. Quit looking in the rearview mirror and just look at the windshield type thing. But as far as I know that if I had to go out of town for something, I don't have to worry about it.
What advice would you give to single people who are looking for love?
My advice to anybody, whether you're younger or whether you're older, if you don't plan on sticking it out through what your vows say, through rich or poor, through sickness and health, if you can't say those vows and in your heart of hearts mean them, don't get in it.
Don't get in it.
Because you're automatically in for the wrong reasons, and I promise you it probably won't work out. The chances are very, very slim that it's going to work out. If you're not in it for the long haul, if you're not in it for the sickness and health and richer or poorer, don't get in it.
Yeah, I like
that. Because marriage is a partnership. It's not an individual sport. It's a partnership.
Right.
And if you're a self-absorbed person, you probably ought to stay single. Because marriage is not for everybody. It just isn't.
Yeah.
There are so many things it's not for everybody. Marriage is no exception. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's my advice. If you're not in it for the long haul, don't get in it.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I know that I was engaged several times. We joked about it a lot. But one of the things I always told myself was, if I stood back there, or if I I gave myself permission to walk away from it before I said I do, because I didn't want to get divorced. I mean, I've told you that, when we talked before, I just didn't want to be divorced. And I gave myself, if I had a shadow of a doubt prior, I wasn't going to do it. I wanted to walk away before I said I do. And of course, there was a lot of times that in our marriage, don't get us wrong at all. I mean, we've had it out. We've fought. We've been through some incredibly difficult time. We've owned our own business. We've lost it. We've lost our home. We've had to start over. All kinds of difficult things. And there's sometimes that you stay in a marriage because of who you are and who your character is and who you choose to be, not because of who the other person is, not because they're so fan-flippin-tastic that day. I mean, it's because of who you choose to be. I'm staying in this marriage because of my character, who I have decided to be.
Right.
Because this is the example I'm setting for my children of what of a marriage is, of example I'm setting. So, advice is hard because it's, what is that really worth? Because advice is hard.
Yeah. No, but you've nailed it, I think, right?
And Rachel and I's marriage motto, is till death do you part.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I just told him how quickly he wants that to come is up to him. How long you want to live, baby?
Right. No, but Rachel, I think you nailed it, right? When you talk about, I don't know how many times you were engaged, but the fact that you said you asked yourself, do you see forever with this person?
Right.
You say, I do. And then you make that decision to not, one, waste that person's time.
Right.
And to not break the vows later. So,
right.
Yeah. And when you felt like it was the right time, you married him.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then once you do it, you have to do it. And like I said, sometimes you stay in it not because of that person, but because of who you decide to be. Like I am this person. This is the decision I made, because some days you just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, some days they just don't act right. And they're not likable. Sometimes you go through a season. You may go months that they're not likable, because sometimes life is just hard. And sometimes things are hard for a while. Because when you lose businesses or go through sicknesses or go through trials, it doesn't turn around in a day or two. Or sometimes even a month or two. Sometimes it's a year or 2 years before, things ease up or slack up or that turnaround happens. And that's what real commitment is. Real commitments is saying, I'm going to see this through till the turnaround happens.
Right. Yeah.
And love isn't always like.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So this concludes the interview. So I want to take this time to say thank you for taking time to share your story with my audience. And
Sure.
It's a beautiful story, and I really appreciate you guys.
We love it. We enjoy it. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and all the way to the end. I am genuinely so grateful. So now you can continue to show your support in a few different ways. The first one is, if you can think of someone who might benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And the second thing is, we all are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. So please share this episode. And I love it when people tag me to their post. And 3, head over to iTunes. You can leave a review and you can rate this episode. All your feedback is very helpful, and it helps this podcast get visible so others can listen to all these great stories. Thank you so much. Till next time.